I'll I'll just play a video for you guys and then I can start.
So, yeah. So basically, our next story starts.
Yeah. So I'll be presenting the design thinking, as we call it. It's an interplay of design thinking and Internet of Things. It's a methodology to understand and discover the use cases in IoT scenarios. And I'm joined with my colleagues Suvodeep and Susheel, who were part of this exercise. This was done in SAP Labs. Just before I jump into this, just want to understand within the audience who all are involved in Internet of Things within the enterprise sector. Has anyone worked on that? Okay, only two guys. So I just need to give you a background of the whole Internet of Things and how we are involved in this. SAP has this program of a co-innovation lab where the partners come with IoT use case and all, and we facilitate it, we help them make a solution out of it. Sometimes we have time to do the full end-to-end user study or go to the site also, and sometimes we don't have the situation and they get a subject matter expert. And the use cases are really complicated. If we talk about the enterprise sector, the Internet of Things, it comes from factory environments, manufacturing, oil and gas, aquaculture. Someone was showing that those kind of scenarios where there are multiple things, multiple scenarios, multiple machines involved. So if you take a manufacturing plant, there is a machine one, there are 12 machines make a one line. There are 12 lines will make a plant, say one plant. And each of the machine is contributing data. And each sensor is, when we talk about the IoT scenario and if we digitize the whole thing, each sensor will be throwing data. And now how you try to, when you try to understand the whole use case of that, it becomes really complicated. And when you are trying to understand as such. So this, the presentation I'll show you, it's on, there was one use case where we were trying to map a product from farm to fork. That was the whole length of that. So what happens when a farmer has a produce and we try to map the quality of that produce, then it goes to the collection center, and in the collection center you put it in the container and all, container, from there it goes to the dock. From dock it's shipped, then someone is waiting at the other shore, the dock is docked, and then you check the quality again, whether the quality what was shipped and it's still there. Then it's put to the transportation manager, and transportation manager puts the container in a truck, and the truck goes to the retail store. So it's very end to end, and we tried multiple times whenever there was this session to bring everyone to the same page. They were all design thinking involves, there are many people, many roles as such come together, and we try to understand the whole problem. And whenever we tried, there was always a new thing that was coming up. There was always some missing piece that was always there. And then we thought about this particular approach, why don't we bring everything on one table? And literally we did that. How we did that, before I get into this, there's also one more thinking behind this whole thing. So when we try to understand the traditional, say, UI or say 3-tier application that we try to understand. So the touch point is always at the interface level. And major magic happens in the back end that you don't try to understand. Maybe the software architect will try to understand that there is this component and there is this component. But when it comes to the Internet of Things, each and every part is part of that whole ecosystem or part of that problem space as such. And you need to understand that whole thing. And it's layered information. So our particular methodology, how it helps is particularly at a understanding phase where someone has done kind of a secondary research or kind of has gone into the field and then has come back or little bit, and then people are trying to understand the whole domain as such. Or it comes at a synthesis stage where someone has gone to the field and has come back, like charretting and all, when you are trying to tell the story. But now it's a collaborative exercise. So what it comprises in a nutshell, there are three basic components to it. There is a prop, there is a point of interest, and there is a spatial narration to it. And there can be many props, but not every prop can be a point of interest. And point of interest, I'll go into the detail of it. So the props, this is the key part that made the building block of it. The initial version, we sourced everything that we could get hands on. The Jenga blocks became the container, the Lego blocks became a persona or a terminal, and we had this design thinking kit that we were thinking of making from a paper. There was a parallel thought behind it. When you're doing the design thinking exercise, there can be a icebreaker session where you create these props by yourself, and then the whole team gets involved in this whole thing. So this was the prop. This is the design thinking kit that we are thinking of. Suvodeep is currently working also. The point of interest is where you put this prop, which is a point of interest, and you list down all the things that are involved in this particular prop. So, like there are different sensors, humidity, temperature, and moisture. How many times the frequency that this is particularly transmitted, and who all the stakeholders are involved in this particular. Maybe it's on-site and maybe it's someone offshore that they are. You try to make it a dot. It's very flexible as such. There's no very hardcore structure to that particular thing, but it's you go with the flow. You first put down every information, and then we start with the spatial narration. Each particular person takes a role of a persona, and he stands with the point of interest and then starts the story. It's like I take the container, now I'm putting the produce into the container, and the quality check will ask, so what is happening over here? What information you are giving to me? Now, those kind of information, there can be a transportation manager who is not in the loop or at that particular stage. He starts questioning that whole thing, whether I'm informed anything or something is missing over that particular thing. There have been instances where we can uncover different use cases that you never thought about when we do this kind of thing. So these are the basic pros and cons. It's a very good thing for use case discovery. We tried for the IoT scenario. It might be applicable for when you are designing for a service. It can be applicable for there. Identifying loopholes and use cases, if you have those in your initial research. Very good in bringing the team together to understand the big picture. Immediately you can go from a macro to a micro scale, and when you go to the micro, you try to understand at a deeper level, at a sensor level, at those things. Connecting the dots, very useful. And this is a very immersive experience when you start. People try to contextualize. We have videos where you will see a particular person playing the role of a persona. I am a quality check, now I want to know this particular thing. Then this is just a short clipping. It overcomes the fear of storyboarding. Sometimes we have seen when we do this design thinking exercise, people are not very good with the whole storytelling and kind of storyboarding also. So this in a way breaks away that whole thing. So the only limitation is those props, where we have the limitation, but we can make use of anything that is available to us. and cannot be a replacement for the real immersion. We always say you need to go back to the field, and if we have identified these are the loopholes, you need to go back to the field to try to understand the whole thing. Yeah, next step, we are working on the design thinking kit, and within SAP we use it very often. And as I said, this is limited to the IoT use cases only. We haven't tried with other things. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, well.
So in the space of IoT, you're talking about multiple actors playing a very critical role, right? So in that context, if you come up across a situation where you will have to choose a priority area or priority actor out of these, what typically do you choose? I know it depends upon the context, but what is generally to be looked after first?
So it depends on the context, that's for sure. And we typically list down first everything that is there, and then it's a discussion based approach. What becomes the priority? We can take only one and detail it out further, and it's always a consensus which is more important. We have often seen partners coming with a priority persona as such, this is whom we are targeting, but when we do this exercise and the consensus comes, this is not the primary persona, we should tackle the supervisor as such, because that's the one who's struggling on that. So, yeah.
Hi. So it's very good way of putting all the use cases and the story of whatever you are going to build. But I want to ask you whether do you keep the track of whatever is discussed and whatever the problems had occurred or whatever the findings of this use cases in a textual way or in a wherever you can refer it somewhere afterwards, because it can be lost afterwards, or you record it, or we saw recordings, but
We don't
what
have
is
a very structured way of doing things, but we do the recording, and there's a whiteboard. Someone is responsible for that. Whenever there's new things comes or there's loophole, we list down that particular thing and we go back to that.
Yeah, Vimal, I'll just answer this. So, as you know, so this is right now. It's not really. It's okay. I don't need the mic. I think it's not really very structured because we just come up with it. But if you really look at it, we have this huge whiteboard table, and there are the props or the toys, whatever you call it. At every point of interest, we make sure that people, when they are visualizing it, they write down exactly on that, or we put some flag markers, right? So when you are noting that out, it's always with a spatial and a contextual location in mind, that and people can always empathize much more and identify it at a later point, because you're not just randomly or whatever writing something on a whiteboard in a wall and thinking about it. It's always associated with an imagery and a scene in your mind. We are actually moving the truck from, let's say, a little farm, and then it is going to the port, and you associate, it's like play, you associate the entire story there and you're living out that moment. So it really helps because you not just textually write it, but it's more or less it goes into your short-term memory and you're
Yeah.
So, but to
yeah,
add
that
to,
we always do that.
To add to Suvo's discussion, the second part of it is about documentation that you take to the teams. So you basically end up with deliverables like personas, their user goals, user needs, and you distribute it with the team. It becomes a part of team building exercise as it is, and it's the key driving point for the entire development.
If you see that
So
entire
that's the
exercise
second part.
which we do, there'll probably be 4 or 5 personas we identify out of that exercise. Okay, thank you everybody. Thanks.
Just one question. Yeah, hi. You mentioned there's an interesting way by which you're capturing, you're trying to make a process out of creating a use case. So when you say these people are interrogated at every step, like you took the example of a traffic controller, and you lay all these models, and these people are questioned as what value they get out of it. That's roughly how I understood it, right?
Not the value.
Mm.
So the information that is being exchanged.
Okay.
So if you are standing at a machine level, say you are standing at this, and there are many things going on.
Yeah.
So what all information you first list down that particular thing. Now when you start the scenario, you try to validate your assumptions also and the part of this persona also.
So is it a very structured discussion or it's very
No, it's very fluid, very fluid. Yeah.
Okay, thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Can we have a big hand for it?
Thank you, all the authors and Pankaj, of course. So, what we do now is we go for a 10 minutes tea break. Tea is served over here. And there's a quick announcement that those